My name is Jeff Morgan. I am from Dallas, Texas. I want to talk for a few moments on the issue of, are children resilient? And in the context of divorce. One of the arguments that all of these great experts tell us is that children are resilient. Children just want their parents to be happy. Divorce will not really injure the children. What hurts the children is conflict. Conflict injures the children. And if you're in a marriage with conflict, the best thing to do for your children is to get a divorce. So author Layla Miller put this question out to a bunch of adults who were now adult children of divorce. And she asked them, are children really resilient? What do you want to say to people who say that children are resilient and kids are happy when their parents are happy and kids of divorce will be just fine and will go on to live successful lives? What do you want to say to people that say such things as this? I'm going to be reading some of the quotes from the people that responded. Divorce is simply a bloodless form of child sacrifice. Nothing more, nothing less. My grandparents' generation had to deal with a lot: war, undiagnosed PTSD, and alcoholism. But they had a noble idea that you sacrificed your own happiness for your children's well-being. You took on a lot of the heartaches so that they didn't have to. My parents' generation inverted that. They decided it was better a child should have her world torn apart than an adult should bear any suffering. And she's talking about how her parents got divorced and how she bore suffering because of that. The whole argument, if the parents are happy, the kids will be happy. My world was torn apart. What divorce does is shatter the universe in a drastic and traumatic way, and there's no coming back from that. It even changes the way you perceive reality. You become anxious, nothing ever feels safe or predictable, and you're always waiting for the piano to fall. Another person, another survivor of his or her parents' divorce, said this: there are not vulgarities strong enough to express my hatred and disdain for these notions. I have holes in my life that will never be filled this side of heaven. A third person said this: I want to scream when I hear children are resilient. Children are trying to survive. Children from divorce are trying to see where they fit in among all the wreckage and dysfunction, trying so hard to make sense of who they are. It may look like they are functioning just fine, but on the inside, they are dying. Well, me and my siblings, we survived, but with serious collateral damage. What is resilience anyway? Is it likened to a rubber trash can? Something that can be dragged, thrown, crushed, and left outside to hold the stench? Another person says this: the old kids are resilient and kids are happy when their parents are happy, and kids can go on and live happy, successful lives. Yes, I've heard that. I can tell you, like most lies, there is a grain of truth in each statement. From all outward appearance, and this person talks about how successful he became. But you cannot see the struggles that are kept behind the scenes. If I believed with 1 ounce of sincerity that kids are fine after divorce, I would have been divorced 17 years ago. Yes, kids may be resilient, but do they deserve this brokenness? Do they deserve division? Do they deserve visitation and custody arrangements and holidays straddled and tugged between parents and grandparents? I hear people say, I'd die for my kids. And I always wonder if they'd be willing to live for their kids. Because I can say that living for them, in my experience, is hard. It's really hard. It's hard to persevere for the sake of others. She then talked about how she was with some friends and they were all spouting this nonsense. Children are resilient. Children want parents to be happy. If parents get divorced and if they have a good divorce, children are just fine. Her comment was this: what struck me in the midst of this conversation was that in this group of 8 women who spoke with such authority, they all came from an intact family. They said what was expected, what our friend wanted to hear. Her friend was getting divorced, and she was blabbing on this stuff about this nonsense about children are resilient. And that's what we are supposed to do. We're supposed to support them and encourage them instead of giving them feedback and telling them the truth. Another person said this: people who say that children are resilient, they are lying to themselves. If you believe this, you are lying to yourself. If you're a person who says, I'm going to get divorced because it's going to be better for my children, you are lying to yourself. Period. Yes, the kids may grow up to be successful like I did, but the psychological damage will always occur in the child. It just will. You can't tear up a child's foundation of security, which is their parents' marriage, and expect them to be fine. They will always have those wounds and scars they'll have to deal with. Maybe they'll be able to cope with it well, but the fact is they will have something to cope with that a child from an intact family will not. Another person wrote about this myth that children are resilient and children just want to see their parents happy, and if they divorce, children are happy because their parents will be happy. Maybe you think that parents being happy will make their kids happy, but when divorce occurs, someone does the leaving. It is not usually a congenial, mutual decision. And she talks about her own dad leaving. My dad may have been happy, nobody else was. My mother and my stepmother were destroyed. My siblings were destroyed. Did we pull ourselves back together? Well, I guess reasonably so. But I have had nightmares almost my entire life. I have suffered from migraines since I was 9 years old. Children are happy. They just want to see their parents happy. And children are resilient. Children are happy when they see their parents happy. I have been diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety and panic attacks, and severe clinical depression. The divorce essentially removed a protective parent from my life, and I was abused from age 3 to 18. Children are resilient. Children just want to see their parents be happy. And if parents being happy mean that they get divorced, children will adjust. They just are resilient. Another person writes, these are platitudes to assuage guilty consciences. Yet another person writes, I remember when my mom said that she and my dad had some important news to tell my sisters and me. And she said, not to worry. Nobody was sick. Everything was going to be okay. Married couples with children who are considering divorce need to be told it's not going to be okay. Quit lying to yourselves. They are going to affect their children's lives, and not just their children's lives, but their grandchildren's lives forever. Yet another person wrote, I completely disagree. Yes, we may go on to live successful lives, but with a lot of baggage. For me personally, that means a past that still haunts me to this day. Well, wait a minute. You have a past that haunts you? I thought as a child you would be happy if your parents were happy. If your parents got divorced and they were happy, you would be happy. I have a past that haunts me to this day. Abuse, suicide attempt, cutting, major depression, promiscuity, my own divorce, etc. A lot of that would have been avoided had my parents just stayed together from the get-go. Divorce is such a trauma, and so many kids are expected to be okay since it's normal. We have now normalized the destruction of your children's lives. Still another person writes, those who would say that children of divorce are resilient, if they are therapeutic professionals or religious leaders, I wish they would be disciplined for leading parents astray. Children are owed more than a roof over their heads and timely child support payments. And parents being happy about their own love lives and sexual activity is not part of what parents owe to their children. Yet another person writes to this whole nonsensical idea that children are resilient. It is complete BS. Still another person writes this. Before I say anything to people who say children are resilient, Children will be happy if the parents are happy, and even if that means getting a divorce. Before I say anything to them, can I slap them around a little bit first and let them know that that makes me happy so that they should be happy too? I just slap you in the face and slap you and punch you and kick you and everything else. It makes me so happy. And by the way, you're resilient to my punches and kicks and blows. No? Can't do that? That's exactly what you do to children when you choose to destroy a family. It is so terribly easy to manipulate kids, to make them pay the price for your sins, for the sins of those who should love, protect, nurture, and care for them. And this person says, became a very successful person. I hid my own pain and fear for years. I am still trying to figure out who I am, and I'm still trying to believe that who I am is okay. I know these issues aren't related only to divorce, but really a divorce, at least sometimes, is just another indication of parents who put their own desires ahead of what is right and best for kids. Still another person writes, to people who say these things, I would answer that unless you have divorced parents, you can't possibly know how I feel. Still another person writes, I'd call it a load of crap, and I wouldn't wish that suffering on any child. Just because children of divorce may seem fine, it does not mean that they are fine. They probably just don't want to talk about it or think about it. I would cry myself to sleep or cry alone for hours. Children are resilient, and children will be happy if the parents are happy. And if divorce makes the parents happy, children will just be happy. There will be a good divorce. It's not divorce that causes the pain. It's the conflict that may cause the pain in children. Children need to avoid the conflict. They need to see their parents be happy if it means them getting a divorce. This is the nonsense that is being propagated and that adults are believing so that they can convince themselves somehow, or at least some people can convince themselves, that what they've done is not really that bad. It's not really that bad. My children are resilient. They'll be just fine. Yet another person writes, well, kids are not resilient. They come out damaged one way or another, whether they know it or not. The fact is, marriage sometimes sucks. That's true. But divorce always sucks. At a minimum, when parents divorce, kids do not see the struggles of marriage and the ways to work out conflict, or the healing of forgiveness between spouses. I believe that the three most important words in marriage are not, I love you, but I am sorry, please forgive me. When you divorce, because, I've fallen out of love. That is nonsense. If you do not learn how to say, I am sorry and please forgive me, you are depriving your children of valuable skills on how to resolve conflict. This person continues to write, if the father is absent, as he was in my case, it is devastating. It destroys the image of God as a loving father, which is not just a Catholic thing, but a description of reality. In fact, I was an atheist for a time because I could not believe God would allow what happened to my family to actually happen. And to all of you people who say, well, children will be happy if their parents are happy and children of divorce are resilient, one thing that is not talked about often is how many people, many children of divorce, walk away from their faith in God. As this person here said, I became an atheist for a while. This person also continued to describe his own life and the addictions that he had, the lack of discipline, his attachment to pleasure, to food, to drink, to sex. I thought the object of life was to be rich, eat well, have a good-looking woman draped on your arm, until that ran out. Years he went through this. Lack of discipline has plagued me to this day, but perhaps the most insidious damaging effect is that for most of my married life, I have tested my wife in all kinds of passive-aggressive and even outright aggressive ways to see if she would, quote, be around. Because of the divorce that he experienced in his family, he wanted to test his wife to see if she would stick around for him. There has been this cycle of bad behavior on my part, just generally being a jerk, followed by true contrition, but also wanted to see if she would stay constant. I deeply regret the harm I have done in my life. Children are resilient. Children are happy if their parents are happy getting divorced. It is nonsense. It is a complete lie. For adults to try to convince themselves of this, you are deceiving yourselves. If you are a religious leader, a pastor, a priest, a rabbi, if you are a professional, if you are a divorce attorney who loves to destroy families because that's how you make your money, and you talk about the best interest of the children, you are lying to yourself, you are lying to the families that you represent, to the people that you represent, and you are lying to society. Thank you.